the idea for the book came about during the year that I was studying at Trinity College Dublin. I was doing a master's program in creative writing, and during that year I took a visit to India with my parents, and we went to the village where my father spent his childhood in Kerala, which is in the south of India. And I had been there numerous times before as a child, but on this particular trip I just felt very inspired because I was in the middle of this creative writing program. And I went to the village temple with a number of my cousins, and one of my cousins pulled me aside and she pointed out this green field with this old stone well, this ancient looking stone well covered in moss sitting in the middle of the field. And she told me that there was a superstition in the village that the well was haunted by a ghost, or a yakshi, which is the word for ghost there. And she said that nobody dared tear down the well because they were afraid of this ghost. So I just found this moment incredibly powerful and arresting, and it was really interesting to me to think about the hold and the fascination with superstition that that this myth had on these villagers. So later that night, I guess I was just thinking about this field and this well, and I dreamed about the field and the well, but in my dream I also saw this huge tree with leaves covered in red flowers, and there were two little girls huddled together under the tree, and the red flowers were showering down around them, and I could tell that the two girls were afraid of something. And when I woke up, I couldn't forget that image, and I decided that I wanted to write about it and to explore it and to find out why those two little girls were there and how they got there and why they were afraid. So that dream was sort of the first seed that was planted in my mind, and from there the story just grew and grew, and it turned into a novel. I've always loved books where the setting and the landscape plays a large role in the story and in the descriptions. So I was particularly, I chose to write about Kerala because I've always been incredibly inspired by the landscape and the setting there, by the lush forests and the bright flowers and the rolling green paddy fields. It's always just been a very beautiful place that has captured my imagination, so I wanted to use that as a setting for this book. And I particularly chose to have a garden play a large role in the plot of the story, not only because it's beautiful and that was a way for me to really play with describing the landscape and the setting and the flora and the fauna, but also because I really loved the book The Secret Garden as a child growing up. And what I loved about that book was the idea of how the secrets of this family are embedded within the garden, and the garden really holds the key to the fate of the people in the story and the fate of you know, the family as a whole. And I always found that idea really fascinating, and so I was inspired by that idea, and I wanted to explore it in a much darker, more adult way and through a different cultural lens. So I wanted the story to revolve around a secret because those are the stories that keep me compelled and that keep me wanting to turn the pages. And I was particularly fascinated with the idea of family secrets because I think every family does have secrets. I don't think there's any family that doesn't have some skeleton hiding in the closet. And so for me, that's always just been a fascinating idea, the idea of how these secrets come about in the first place, and how the secrets then, what the ramifications of those secrets are for the other members of the family and through the generations. The secret of this story is really essentially the secret of the main character Raki's mother, who she calls Amma. And Amma has been carrying this secret around with her for years, since she was a teenager. And the secret, she sort of views it as something that belongs to her, and she very selfishly does not realize that by holding this secret within her, she's basically holding the rest of her family hostage, and the rest of her family has to pay for her mistakes, including her daughter. So ultimately, the book is not only about family secrets and how they affect other people and the ramifications of those secrets, but also about how to overcome that, and how the second generation, Raki, the main character, how she takes that secret and she uses it as a tool for redemption for the family.